This morning I'm going to preach to you an honest sermon about stewardship. I imagine Maury, our treasurer, is already starting to sweat right after I said that. But here it begins. Too often our stewardship talks begin with a bit of a lie. You'll get back what you give. It's not always a lie, but this world is not nearly as balanced as we would pretend. Far too often the good suffer, and the bad seem to thrive. But I want to talk to you about karma. I'm going to talk to you about stewardship and giving, but first I want to talk to you about our misconception around karma. Now, we've heard of the best ways to do a stewardship drive. We ask you to give and say that you'll get it back somehow. We're very elusive, very gray. And the best stewardship drives go like this. There's a person standing in front of a podium. Praise music is going on around them. There's an ecstatic crowd shouting or something. And then the person at the podium looks out and looks straight into the camera. And they say, "Are you suffering? Are you hurting? Do you not have enough?" Well, if you give to the 800 number below, I promise whatever you give, you'll get back tenfold. And then people that are living hand to mouth give more than they probably should. And the person behind the podium buys another suit. I can say this because I'm not wearing a suit, but it's a nice gig if you can pull it, if you can deal with it, if you can live with doing that to people that are already hurting. And we are all fairly good at rationalizing. I once heard one of these televangelists give an interview about how they could live so lavishly while the people that they were serving were living so poorly. And he said, "Well, I'm just following the example of Jesus." He said, Jesus had one robe, but he wasn't walking around in rags. That robe he had was the nicest silk, the nicest fabric you could ever imagine. And the sandals he had on his feet, oh man, you should have seen those. After he finished shaking the dirt off at the people that didn't welcome him, they cleaned up real nice. I'd like to say I was making that up. I wish that I had made that up, but that is real. That's what we've done to stewardship campaigns. Give and give and give until it hurts and never ask where your money is going. Just accept it. God is working. You don't understand how. I need this jet. I need to fly places quickly. You wouldn't understand.
I need a new jet. Yes.
There you go. We got to have that jet. But stewardship drives are like that. And karma, as we popularly understand it today, is like that. But that's not how karma really is. I want to explain to you karma. Karma is a fancy word for deeds, things that you do. You do good deeds and bad deeds. And the karmic understanding is that the good deeds somehow weigh into your life just as the bad deeds. Whether or not, I don't know how many of you are Buddhist here, but functionally, a lot of us are Buddhists because we think things like what goes around comes around. I hear it all the time in the hospital. I'm just trying to figure out what I did early on in life that this bad thing happened to me. It's a fairly common thing that I hear. You think it wouldn't be, but I hear it more often than I maybe should. But that is not how karma works in Buddhism. You may have done some bad deed 15 lifetimes ago, and it may influence your life now, but you have no way of knowing that. And sometimes even when you think that there's a good thing that happens to you, let's say you won the lotto, that could be bad karma that made you win the lotto, because we've all seen how money can tear people's lives apart. We try to make the world into this simple equation. You do good, you get good. But we've all seen the other side of that. I think I don't have to explain that to you. We've all seen the negative side of that. Now for Christianity. In our gospel for today, Jesus deals a little bit with karma, or more so at the time, the direct hand of God. He talks about this story that we know next to nothing about. Or those 18 who were killed when the Tower of Siloam fell on them. Do you think that they were worse offenders than all those others living in Jerusalem? We have no historical record of this falling tower that killed 18 people. But we do know what the story was about. A tower fell and killed 18 people in a time when they thought everything that was bad that happened was from the hand of God. And everything that was good that happened was from the hand of God. So if a tower falls and kills 18 people in this horrific way, they must be sinners, right? And all those people that avoided being smashed by this falling tower, they had properly calculated and they were giving 10% of their tithe, right? That's how the world works. But we laugh at the idea of that. But is it really that far removed from how we actually think? How we understand certain deaths, certain events? More than not, I'm guessing a lot of us have said they had it coming. They had it coming, as if we all don't have it coming. And more often than not, the church has probably encouraged this thinking. Why? Because we want you to give. We want your money. That's just the truth of the church. And we've told you, if you give, you'll get it back. Don't worry. Just keep giving and giving and giving. But then we have to think about Jesus. Jesus gave everything. And what was his reward at the end of his life? The cross. You should all be so lucky. What about Paul? Paul is a good follower. He gave up his family. Some say he gave up a wife and children. He gave up everyone that he knew, all of his friends. He traveled. He gave up a home. And then eventually gave himself over to be martyred. Who wants to be part of that stewardship campaign?
No.
Anybody? No? Probably for the best. So why give? Why bother giving if it's not going to be returned to you? Why volunteer if you might go under or unappreciated? I think it comes around to why the gardener defends the fig tree in our gospel story. The owner of this property has a fig tree on his property. And he orders the gardener to cut down this fig tree because it has not produced for 3 years. I'm not going to get into the ridiculousness of that a fruit tree only grows fruit after 3 years, but the gardener steps in for this slow-growing plant. And he asks for patience. He asks for a second chance. He asks for time. Why? As strange as it sounds, the gardener knew how easily he could be the fig tree. Sometimes he didn't get around to plowing the field because he was tired. Sometimes his plants didn't grow because plants are fickle like that. If this other was so easily replaced, why not him? Why give? Not because you're going to get something back. We give because we know that the person that's going to be receiving our time or our money, that there's no reason they couldn't be us. We are born to a specific culture, a specific time, to specific parents. One event could change all of that. There's no reason that that person in need couldn't be us. The housing crisis put this pretty firm in our minds. They say we're all one bankruptcy or one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. As the downturn economy hits, it's what happened to my job? What happened to my house? What happened to my retirement? We know how easily we could become that person in need. We give because we know that they are our neighbor. We give because we know that we could be our neighbor. There are those who say it's time to cut down the fig tree, but we are different kinds of gardeners. We are gardeners filled with radical love. We are gardeners that know that good or bad karma, whatever comes our way, God is going to be by our side. And where hate should seem to come first, patience works a whole lot better. We are gardeners who do not give for return, but because we know those first fruits are going to be ever so sweet. Every time I think of giving, or stewardship, I think about this one story. It comes from Ewan McManus, pastor down in Los Angeles. And he asked his daughter what she wanted to do when she grew up. And she said, I want to make $1 billion and give it all away. And he said, well, you probably want to keep some of it. You know, look after the ones you love. I'm not saying he was selfishly trying to get $1 million or $2 million his way, but he was trying to get her to be a little bit more rational. She said, no, I want to make $1 billion and give it all away. So he tried again. Well, if you give it all away, then you'll be dependent on the system and someone else will have to give you money. So you might just want to hold on. She said, no, I want to make $1 billion and give it all away. And that's when he gave in. Because he realized that he was trying to put a cap on what she could get. He was trying to hinder that God-given calling within her to give, and he was trying to stifle it. He was trying to be rational. He was trying to be right. But giving is not about being rational. It's not a good investment. You're not going to see a dividend or interest on your giving. And if you give, you might not get it back. You might not get any of it back in one way or another. And this has caused a number of people to step forward with trepidation to the offering plate. I'm going to give a little less this year because I don't know what's going to come. Which has left a lot of people with a lot of guilt for what they're not putting in the offering plate. But let me ask you this. For the 3 years that the fig tree did not produce fruit, did it ever provide shade to someone on a hot day? Did it produce oxygen so that we all might breathe better? My grandfather, Frank, Grandpa Frank, you're going to hear a lot of stories about Grandpa Frank over the years, but here's your first one. He was a terrible gardener. Just awful. He used to teach me how to garden, which is why I kill every plant that comes near me. But he had a fig tree. A sad little fig tree that he could never quite get to produce anything. He tried so hard, he read everything on it, he just couldn't get this darn fig tree to produce fruit. So one week I was over there, and he starts shouting, starts yelling. So I take off running because he doesn't have the best health, and I'm thinking, oh, he had a heart attack. So I get out there, and he's standing up, and he hands me this plate. And on it is the most sad, depressing, pathetic fig you've ever seen. Calling it a fig is charitable. I mean, it's one step away from a stone. But then you see the joy on his face. The joy of this fig that he had produced. It's like he had given birth to this fig. He would have called it his little bambino if it had come there. Even the smallest fruit can be a great gift. Even the smallest gift can change a life. You're not meant to give out of guilt or fear. You're not meant to give beyond what seems right to you. You're not meant to just foolishly trust on things that don't need to be trusted on. You're meant to give out of what has been given to you. It might be a lot, it might be a little. But God has given you something. Something that is yours to pass on. This is not meant to be a moment of guilting you, of forcing you to give more, to open your checkbooks, to locking the doors and passing the offering plates around and around and around. This is about getting you to realize that you are special. That God made you special. You have something to share. Yes, it might be a fig, or it might be shade, or it might be oxygen. It might be land, it might be a tree, it might be anything. Only you know what is right for you to give. We made a decision a while ago not to cut down the fig tree that was First Lutheran. We're going to start seeing that harvest soon. The truckload of fruit is coming, and we need to be ready. Amen.